Pittsburgh Steeler fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's Thursday night. It's almost 9:15. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But where else would you rather be other than preparing to play a football game? And with me as always, except when he's not, is my big brother Rich. Rich, how's it going?
Heidi ho, good brother Dave.
Yeah. So as long as there's still football to be played in the 2023 season, there's always a little something that's going to be like, yeah, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first of all, I have to apologize. Apologize because I'm running just a little bit late. I didn't take into account time to set up the show. But I was getting home a little bit late because I had a task tonight. I had to hashtag pay Kyle.
No, hashtag feed Kyle.
well, I paid him, but I paid him with food. You know, what better way to pay a teenage boy is with food. So, yeah, Kyle was in the area because his team had a basketball game not too far from where I live. That's their farthest trip of the year, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Their farthest trip of the year and really close to me. So I had to go see Kyle, and I did get to stick around for the end of the game and then get to see him for a couple minutes afterwards. So that's why we're a little bit later tonight, but I figured since it was for family and this is the family show, then that was good enough. So Rich, how's it going? I'm trying to think of what all's happened Steeler-wise since we talked last week, because last week was when it was reported that Arthur Smith, we talked about that at length, so we finally get to be someone who doesn't have to talk about it.
That's right.
So
already did. Done.
Yep.
Been there, done that.
Yep. Hire was made
Moving
official on Friday. Now the question is kind of the rest of the coaching staff. Was kind of surprised that it came out that the Steelers did not renew the contract of wide receivers coach Friesman Jackson, because the last time, because when he was hired, we didn't even know that the Steelers weren't, were letting go of who was it? It was like Hilliard before him, right?
I think so.
Yeah. We didn't even know that was the case. So I was kind of surprised that came out before they actually had another hire in place. And we know who Steelers Nation wants. I would not be opposed to that. Would you?
No, I mean, we all know who Steelers Nation wants. Is that who we're going to get? We probably got about a 1 in 12 chance of that happening.
I know. I'm as bad as I want it. I take the field just because I just every time I think there's a great move that the Steelers could do in that regard, it doesn't happen. But sometimes they turn around and surprise you. Like I think of Brian Flores a couple years ago. But it's interesting. I mean, I even thought that Friesman Jackson was getting some potential look last year at coordinator jobs, if I recalled correctly. But maybe I'm thinking wrong. But you just never know how those things are going to be. So. Anything else news-wise you want to cover before we get rolling into stuff? I mean,
I was just peeking through to see if there really was anything. There's really not.
No, and like I said, we've talked about the OC. We'll see. Here's my question. I'm going to ask you right now. This time next week, are we going to get to talk about at least some new coaching hire? You think they'll do at least something the next week?
Monday, Tuesday, it could be close.
Yeah.
Maybe, but we might, there's a chance we could just miss it. I bet it either happens on Tuesday or Wednesday. So I'm basically in a we might get lucky, but we could end up missing it by a day for our show.
Yeah. Now, here's something interesting to talk about before we get into our topic. I mean, this is 100% Steelers related. Kathy brought it up.
Yep.
She's like, we going to Brazil. I put this
25%,
out there.
25% chance.
That's what I have. I have it. I'm narrowing down the options because I'm the one who I put this out there on our Slack channel. We have a bunch of different channels on our Slack channels. We have a breaking news channel. Didn't have it there, but you also have a random channel. That's where I put stuff like this. But there was an announcement that we knew there was going to be a game played in Brazil this year. We already know the games that are being played in Europe. None of them are teams that the Steelers play, that they face them on the road. So the Steelers are not going to Europe this year. But they announced, they waited for Super Bowl week. Roger Goodell, in his time, he announced this. The NFL's playing a game in Brazil. They're playing it the opening week of the season. And they're playing it on a Friday night. So they're getting another day in there. That's typical NFL. Hey, I'll watch Thursday night. I'll watch Friday night when it comes out, regardless of who's playing.
I got to duck a second. Be right back.
Okay. So I'll finish talking about this while Rich is gone, because he knows what's up here. So they announced that the home team for the game in Brazil is the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, because it's an NFC team, and it's the years for NFC teams to be hosting the international games because they have the extra home game. Now you're like, well, what about the Jaguars? The Jaguars have a separate deal that they always host a game in Europe. It's an addendum or whatever, or it was a deal before the NFL expanded to 17 games. So the way they do it now is the teams that are giving up a home game are ones that have 9 regular season home games. It makes sense to do it that way. They're almost to a point of my original proposal to go to 17 games years ago. They did it with the matchup. My matchup was right. I said same placing in the NFC division. You're 2 years removed from playing. They did that. But the other thing that I said is, like, I wasn't going to give one team a home or an away game. I was going to give them all neutral field. The 17th game was neutral field, and I thought that'd be fun. They're kind of working towards that, but not every game being neutral field. But the games go to teams to the home teams of the conference that has 4 home games. So it's the Eagles. They have 9 home games. I think I said 4 more home games. Here are their opponents on the road, or that have to travel to Philadelphia. The Cowboys, the Giants, Commanders, Browns, Falcons, Jaguars, Steelers, Packers, Panthers. So, Rich, right away I'm thinking they don't generally do divisional games for international games. So I'm ruling those 3 out. Yep. That's not 100% ruled out, but that's pretty close.
Yeah. If you were eliminating games, I would eliminate those games.
Yes, because why? Because teams want those home games. They want those home games. Okay.
Because they matter extra.
Yes. The Jaguars are going to Europe. The Panthers are going to Europe. Cross those 2 out.
Cross them off.
So there's 4 left. And those 4 left are the Browns, the Falcons, the Steelers, and the Packers. I would say I wouldn't be shocked at all if it's the Steelers. That's good news for Pittsburgh, honestly. I would be happy with that. When's the last time the Steelers won Philadelphia?
Exactly.
It's been a long time.
I have a feeling it will be Steelers or Packers.
Yes. It could be Brown. The Browns are too much of a they're too much of a question mark. I think it's Steelers or Packers. I think you're right. I'd be fine with the Steelers playing on a Friday. Now, why do you do a Friday? Is it one? It gives them a different day of the week that they can monopolize in that opening weekend. Great job. But because of travel, you're not putting the team at the disadvantage to come back. You don't have to give them their bye week after they go, after they leave the country. Honestly, I'm not torn up about it. I think it's a decent plan. And I'm okay if it's the Steelers. I'm all right if it's the Steelers. But are you okay? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a time to go and do it. That's it. Honestly, I prefer doing that one there over one of the ones in Europe. So go with it.
And I still think they are getting around to where every team eventually is supposed to. Now, once after going to 17 games, every team should be hosting an international game. I still think they're holding the Steelers out for Mexico, in my opinion. Because, first of all, Mexico wants the Steelers. And what team would want to give up a home game to play the Steelers in Mexico, which would be a Steelers home game?
Yeah.
So, the other option is if they ever go regular season to Ireland, I think that would be an option as well. But I think Mexico and Ireland might go to war because Mexico has been waiting for the Steelers for such a long time for a regular season game, and they haven't got them. So that's why I think the Steelers it'll happen in Mexico first. So, and Kathy says, is it Rio or Sao Paulo? I think it's Sao Paulo, right? I'm pretty sure. Wait, I had it here in front of me.
I'm not sure.
I had it here in front of me. Where did it go? It doesn't say. I'm pretty sure it's Sao Paulo. It didn't actually say it in that tweet. So that's interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing the Steelers do that. I really wouldn't. So, Rich, before we get into this topic, you know what we're going to do? We're actually going to take a quick break. Then we're going to come back. So we're going to talk about February football because we've got one more football game left in this season, and it's not the Steelers. So let's talk about maybe what needs to happen for the Steelers to get back to there. So, hey, Matty P says Sao Paulo has a massive stadium. That sounds about right then. Man, I keep thinking of that one. I'll dream about that game tonight now. So if you're with us here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever it is, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us on the other side, we'll be right back after these messages. All right, Steelers fans, we are back. Woo, Rich. There's one more football game left. Are you going to watch it?
Nope.
Gotcha.
You asked, I answered.
Yeah.
Nope.
Well, it's not going to be cold enough for you to go ice fishing. But you're going to have something else better to do. Isn't that what you did last year in the Super Bowl?
We fixed all the snacks, watched some of the pregame stuff, and then I watched a movie.
Gotcha. I want to watch a game just because I love football. It'll be my last chance to take in football. I'm not highly invested in one team winning over the other. I don't know if I'm supposed to give a prediction on the preview or not, so we'll see if that happens later on here. But about who I think will win, it's funny because our father was asking me today who I'm going to be pulling for. I said, I don't know. It might change 2 or 3 times between now and Sunday, and it might change 2 or 3 times during the game because I'm not worried about the whole 6 Super Bowl things. If the Steelers don't want someone else to catch them, then set the number higher.
Yep. Exactly.
Pull ahead. So I'm not worried about that. And do I really want to see the same team win it back-to-back years? Not really. But it is.
Have I gone from being a Patrick Mahomes fan several years ago to a Patrick Mahomes hater? Yes.
Just because, for the same reason that, come on, I'll be honest with you. Back in the early 2000s when they were going up against the greatest show on turf, were you kind of pulling for Tom Brady? I know I was.
No, I was not.
I was. Mm-hmm.
I was not. I was a fan of the greatest show on turf more than
you like
the New England Patriots.
Back then, but then as that dynasty started to evolve up there, up north, then that's when you could really, really turn on that pretty quick. So, but the question is this: there's only 2 teams that get to play in February. It's been a long time since the Steelers have been one of those 2 teams. So if we're going to talk about February football, let's talk about the Steelers and say, what's the biggest things that you see that you think could get the Steelers back to this point? And I know there's obvious sarcastic answers like win more playoff games. Obviously, that would get them closer. But realistically.
All right. So we talked about what we would potentially do for what we were doing for the topic of the show tonight. And so I was driving after work to, ironically, Mom and Dad's house and was thinking about this. And I got to thinking especially about the Steelers' last Super Bowl victory.
Uh-huh.
I really, really liked that team a lot. Let me ask you a question. What did you like about that team as a whole?
Well, I didn't like that they really struggled in the offensive line. But other than that, what I liked about that team is they had an offense that you feel could get the job done at any time and a defense that could just go out and dominate a game.
Correct. And that's exactly where I was going. Okay, 1 week the defense might carry the team, and the
Mm-hmm.
next week the offense might carry the team.
Yeah.
Okay, they were they were more. What do I want to say? More than capable on either side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
We're missing that. We've been missing that. That's been part of the problem, I think, with the Steelers is we get it on one side of the ball or the other,
Yeah.
not both. So,
Gotcha. Yes. That that it, they're not as complimentary as they were back then. You know, to me, I'm going to grab the low hanging fruit. In order for the Steelers to get back there, they need better quality quarterback play. They just need. I'm not. I don't care who it is. They just need more from the quarterback. I feel like the defense is one of those squads that can keep there. I think back to the Steelers' last playoff game before this season. And when that defense, I've said it on the show so many times, they did what no one else had done all season and it kept the Chiefs scoreless for 5 offensive drives. But all the Steelers had was a 7-0 lead from a defensive touchdown. They just didn't have anything going on offense. It seems like it was a bummer, when Ben Roethlisberger got hurt in 2019. 2020 was kind of an enigma. You started off with that hot start, but it never really felt like it was dominating. It just felt like they were finding ways to win.
yes.
And it obviously fell apart. And Ben Roethlisberger was not the same the next year. I mean, 2020, you can argue, that's up to debate, but that's not something we need to talk about today of whether, that was really anything, how much he really came back from that injury. And you just haven't had that over the top quarterback play. Now, I had an article this weekend, and it was my 3 wishes for the Steelers for 2024. And the reason they were wishes because it's like I'm dreaming. It almost felt like I was dreaming. I had one for coaching, one for defense, one for offense. And for offense, I didn't just say improved quarterback play. I said specifically Kenny Pickett. And the reason I said specifically great play from Kenny Pickett is because how little he costs on the salary cap. That if you get your quality play, I mean, I really don't care what quarterback gives you that great play. But if they sign back Mason Rudolph, he's going to be more on the salary cap than Kenny Pickett. If you go out and think you're going to say, oh, go get Kirk Cousins. I'm like, yes, it could be better, but you're probably paying about 10 times more on the salary cap for him than you are for Kenny Pickett. So to me, in a perfect world, for the Steelers to get the most out of it, I would love it to be Kenny Pickett because I think that's better for the Steelers cap situation. But to me, it really doesn't matter. And Kenny Pickett did show that he could take the team in the fourth quarter, find a way to win. The problem was there were so many times they were more inept throughout the game offensively. They shouldn't have even got to that point. So that's kind of how I feel. What do you want to say about the quarterback play? I've been talking a long time.
Honestly, right now, I don't know if I want to talk quarterback play right now. Okay. It's just I'm tired of beating that horse.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, I'm still, in my opinion, I'm still too close to the season to want to continue to beat that horse. I need a few weeks break of talking quarterback play. I need some time away from it if you want me to approach it open-mindedly
and objectively.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
that's why
I
I really
Yep.
don't have anything to add.
So I said enough for the both of us, right? Um, I I will say one thing before we move on about it. And the
Okay.
thing that drives me nuts is Pittsburgh Steelers fans should want to see outstanding quarterback play. That should be a desire. Now, you may choose to say that you believe it's going to come by the Steelers doing this, whether it's re signing Mason Rudolph, trading for this quarterback, um, signing this quarterback in free agency, whether you're Kenny Pickett or not. The thing that's sad to me is there are people out there that would be like, oh, if you had to choose between Kenny Pickett playing at a Pro Bowl level next year for the Steelers or signing Kirk Cousins to play at a Pro Bowl level for the Steelers next year, either way it would be a Pro Bowl. There are some that would rather overpay all that money for Cousins simply because they want to be right about Pickett. I don't, you know, I don't want the Steelers to destroy their cap situation to get great quarterback play. That's why I'll close up with this. I fully expect the Steelers to run one more year of Kenny Pickett, and it's going to be an all or nothing thing. He's either going to be more than what he's been and take it to the next level, or that's when you realize it, you really have to take the big step to then go. I don't see the Steelers taking a big step at quarterback outside of, of bringing in another person via draft or free agency at this point in Kenny Pickett's career, but I could see it next year. That's just me. So to me, if you get improved quarterback play, because the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, are an example of this year. I I I keep picking on Brian. He only said it the one time on the one show about the Chiefs aren't nearly as good this year as they were in the years past. That's not true. That's actually false. It's not even just I don't think it's right. It's false. Kansas City Chiefs are a better team this year than they were last year because their defense was crap, and now they're arguably the best one in the NFL.
Right.
They were number 2 in points and number 2 in yards. The team that was number 1 in both those categories was not the same team. So if you want to average those two numbers together, it's going to be the Chiefs. They're the best. The Chiefs just aren't. They're just winning differently. They're able to win games 17-10. But you have Patrick Mahomes. So the offense is always capable of doing a little bit more or coming through. And if and I look at that example, I'm like, if the Steelers had that defense, had the defense, and a quarterback that could just take them through, to me, that's the Ben Roethlisberger formula. You got the offense with Big Ben that can carry it to the back and on the back, and you got a really strong defense. That's just me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what? I know you're done with the quarterback talk. So, what? Yeah.
We're going to have plenty of off season to dissect that.
Yeah.
That's just how I look at it, and I'm just not, especially with the way my days gone the past 2 days. I'm just not in the right mind frame to have that kind of discussion.
Yep.
I'll be honest.
Yeah. So what else do you got? What are the biggest things that the Steelers can do to get back to playing February football?
Honestly, like I said, that complimentary type football is the number one thing on my list. Secondly, I would say, I mean, the other things I think of are so small, Okay. Some of it we already have. Okay.
Yeah.
So some of it is a maintain. Okay. We need to maintain. Boswell needs to maintain. If Chris Boswell has another year like this year, like when he kicked the football, to make a deep run, you have to have that dependable kicker that can get you a clutch field goal. And we've been getting, we got that this year. We need to continue with that.
Yeah.
On the defensive side of the football, I still think we need to get our secondary figured out a little better.
Yeah, that's why, on my wish list for that one that I had this weekend, it was that the Steelers went really big on cornerback in free agency. Get someone great to put across from Joey Porter Jr. I know people in here, they're going to poo-poo this because the one time I said it, they're like, what are you talking about? Levi Wallace, blah, blah, blah. I keep saying I'm fine with Levi Wallace coming back if he's replacing James Pierre.
Correct.
That far down the depth chart. But also, because here's the thing with Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace, I'm gonna look into this and maybe do some of this for a show sometime. He did much better in the second half of the year than what people realize. And do you know what happened? Joey Porter Jr. started following the best receiver. So the other team couldn't specifically put their best receiver where he was being covered by Levi Wallace and exploit the matchup. And when you put Levi Wallace on not the best receiver, he did just fine.
All right, I hate to do this to you again, but I got to duck for a second.
Okay, no problem.
We're the real job.
The real job. You keep getting an emergency from work. That happens. And I know someone in here then says about Corey Trice. Corey Trice isn't. Yeah, this is Sean Mahoney that says that. You know what? This isn't against you, Sean. This is just in general. I'm kind of getting tired of Steelers fans falling in love with late round draft picks or even undrafted guys and thinking that they're all going to be Brett Kiesel. I hear about Corey Trice and Darius Rush and those kinds of players at cornerback. If the Steelers have to play those guys, it's probably not good. I'm the same way with Mark Robinson. Very intriguing prospect. Guys coming off the couch past him on the depth chart. He was a liability. If you really want to have the proper depth at inside linebacker, it shouldn't be Mark Robinson. It should be something better. So we talk about the Corey Trices. We talk about the Darius Rush. I mean, my goodness, last year we were talking about Calvin Austin III, who was a 4th round draft pick, not a 7th rounder, 4th rounder. And yeah, he had a few touchdowns. He had 2 in the regular season, 1 in the postseason. Was a punt returner. Had a couple good punt returns in there too. But it's not like he went out there and set the world on fire either. Sometimes we talk about this thing of these lower draft picks, and you're like, oh, I can tell you right now, and people that are like, oh, Levi Wallace, blah, blah. Levi Wallace is better than either one of those two guys. He is. But it's just we're intrigued by, we're wanting to find that next diamond in the rough as Steelers fans. And sometimes it's a little bit too bad. Like, it would be really easy right now. I kind of mentioned this in some messages with Shannon White, and he completely agreed with me. The whole idea of last year's 7th round draft pick, Spencer Anderson, really intriguing offensive lineman, can play anywhere along the line, everything else. And you're like, oh, wow, you have this guy. Could he get in the mix at being the starting center? And I'm like, he wasn't even a thought last year to replace Mason Cole when he was not playing very well. So to me, the Steelers need something better than that at center. But hey, if a 7th round draft pick sticks around as a reserve offensive lineman and is getting a helmet on game days in that deal, that's a great career. So sometimes you just look at some of those things, and banking on a 7th round draft pick coming off an injury or a player that you poached off another team's practice squad to be your answer next year. If the Pittsburgh Steelers thought that way, then they would be in trouble. So, but that kind of leads to another idea that I have for getting back to February football. And we saw it this past year, Rich, as I welcome you back.
We'll see how long that lasts.
Yep. The Steelers don't have, this was another article I did a while ago. They don't have a lot of holes to fill. They basically have every starter coming back if they choose to bring them back. Some of them might be cap casualties, but they don't have to worry about filling big holes. You know what they need to do? They need to stockpile plugs for plugging holes, because if we saw it this past year, attrition you never know where it's going to be. Like this year, it was between inside linebacker and safety. My goodness, the attrition at those positions. So it really is important. I mean, the Steelers thought they did a really good thing by getting 3 inside linebackers that they were going to play together. Even if you went down to 2 of them, you still seem to be okay. Then it went down to 1, and then even for at least a game or so in there, they had none of those 3.
Yeah.
You know? So sometimes it's just got to, it's almost a little bit lucky that if you could get, if where you happen to stockpile depth is where you actually have injury problems. And where you might go somewhere kind of thin is then if you have an injury problem.
Yeah.
Whew.
Hard to predict where you might have injury issues.
Yeah.
But it's if you have the luxury that you're able to spend your time. We always talk about making an upgrade. Sometimes we don't need an upgrade at the starting position, but you need an upgrade in that. What if somebody gets hurt? Kind of deal.
Yeah.
And so it means again. You're not going to fill your team with backups that are of starter quality, because if they were of starter quality, they'd be on a starting roster somewhere.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
What can you do to lessen the pain of injuries?
Lessen the pain. I mean, I think the Steelers, I thought they hit it pretty well with outside linebacker for their reserves this year.
Yep.
Okay. And then they were lucky to get what they did at inside linebacker. And there were some guys that really did fill in admirably. I mean, Landon Roberts, I've just so much kudos to that guy. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. So, Rich, we're going to do something we hadn't been doing for this show, but we're going to start, but we might start doing this. You know what we're going to do?
What are we?
We're actually going to take another, we're going to take another break. We're going to take a second break so I don't have to put all the commercials at one time, so we can spread them out a little bit.
All right.
So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to do our 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk. You ready for that? All right. So if you're with us here, don't go anywhere. If you're audio side, don't worry. We'll be back very soon. All right, Steelers fans, here we go. We could talk forever about really what gets the Steelers back to playing in the Super Bowl. I mean, honestly, so much of it is luck. And that's what's ridiculous. I'll say one more thing before we go to our 5 minute Steelers talk. The other thing is you can't panic. You can't panic. I think it's safe to say the 2 teams that played the last 2 games that aren't playing in the Super Bowl both probably lost the game because they panicked.
Yes.
While the other 2 didn't. So,
yeah, it's a fine line between panicking and not adjusting or over adjusting.
You can play with it. You can have a sense of urgency.
Correct.
But not panic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, in the early game, basically abandoning the run. In the later game, sticking to what you've always done rather than going with the game situation of how it plays out in the postseason. Things of that nature. So that's just one more other thing I want to bring up. All right, here we go. This is the thing that we've been having fun with our 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk. We set the time when we do it. We come back. We're taking questions from you before we finish up the show. So don't put them out there until I tell you to, or else we won't see them. So our 5 minutes. Yeah, Sherry, quit playing with our fears. Our 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk. We went music the first time. We went movies last time. So I'm going to go a little bit different. I almost went back to music, but I'll do that another time. I'm going to go television.
Okay,
Rich. What long-running TV series can you say that you have seen every episode? I got to say long-running TV series because I could say, I've watched every episode of Loki. It was 2 seasons, 12 total episodes. That doesn't count. Okay. Every episode, you could say you've seen them all.
Okay. What do we consider long running?
More than 2 years.
More than 2 seasons.
More than two seasons.
Oh man, I got 2 that I know right off the top of my head.
Okay.
Actually I have 3.
And it could be 3. If they're still current or ones that are over. Either way.
I have 3 TV series that I have seen that I know I've seen every episode.
Okay.
Because I've watched them all in order.
Okay.
Do I have to just pick one, or do I get?
No. We're listing them off.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have seen every episode of, and I will state this, the original, because it to me only the original exists. Magnum PI.
Magnum PI. That's not one for me.
Because I own them all.
Okay.
I'm going to do these in chronological order. So there's that one there. I have seen every single episode, and plus the prequel movie that was done of Burn Notice.
Burn Notice.
Yep.
Okay.
And I have seen every episode multiple times of Person of Interest.
Person of Interest. Yep. That's not one that you used to say, but it just kept going on and on for so long you can keep up. That was your.
I dropped.
You were an NCIS guy for a long time, right?
Huge NCIS guy for quite a long time, and then finally got out of it.
Just you know what? I used to be the same thing with like Law and Order SVU. I used to have seen all of them, but I haven't watched that for basically ever since Stabler went off. But just other things going on. Ones for me that I could say I've seen every episode multiple times. How I Met Your Mother. Okay, there you go. The Big Bang Theory. I've seen all of those.
I think I've seen all those, but I can't be 100% because I haven't.
I own them all, and I've got before I even owned them, I got them from the library and watched every season through.
Yeah,
so I've seen them multiple times.
The ones I state are ones where I know that I've done them because I've watched them all in order.
Yes. Another one, but this is one two that I didn't watch in order, but I'm. This one I know I've seen every episode. I've seen every episode of Friends. That was something for with my wife, and I'm fairly certain, but it's been a long time that I've seen every episode of Seinfeld.
I got another one. I think I've probably seen every episode of Home Improvement. I'd be close on that one. I can't say for sure. I am pretty certain I have seen every episode of Home Improvement.
I could get into like reality shows. Like my favorite show, I'll watch it tonight. The Curse of Oak Island on the History Channel. I've seen every episode of that. I've seen every episode of Swamp People.
Shoot him.
Yeah. Along with Big Bang Theory, I could say I've seen every episode of Young Sheldon. They should be starting the last season here very, very shortly. I'm fairly certain I've seen every episode. It'd be hard for me to find an episode of MASH that I haven't seen.
Yeah, I agree with that one too.
Some other people put that up there.
Yeah, that's one I've probably seen, but I can't 100% verify. I got another one that I'm close on. But I'm a partial season behind.
Yeah,
but that's because it's a currently running series, but I don't watch it live. I pick it up later. And that's The Blacklist.
The Blacklist. Okay. Yep. You've said that before. I said, I don't know that there's an episode of Cheers that I've never seen. I used to watch that on syndication constantly.
I know. Yes.
I can't say for sure that I definitely have seen them all.
Yeah. So, that's another one I agree because it was another one that was just.
We're getting some good ones in here. Walker, Texas Ranger, Reginald. That's a decent one. I've seen some Sopranos, some Breaking Bad. Never watched The Sopranos. Never watched Breaking Bad. The Office. You won't believe this, Rich. I've never watched The Office.
I've never watched some complete episode. Really, I've watched some episodes, but I can't even say I've watched a full season.
Yeah. Someone said The Walking Dead. That's another one. Never seen an episode. That's not my thing. And I know other people would be like Game of Thrones. I've never watched episodes. I don't have HBO, and I haven't.
You know
I know
what?
that's one like
You know
Batman
what?
said.
It took me a minute, but I got another one that I'm pretty
another?
certain I have seen every episode of.
All right, you got to tell us quick because we're at the end of the 5.
Okay, goes back a little further. Welcome back, Cotter.
Welcome back, Cotter. The thing is, even if I had seen them, I wouldn't remember it, and I would watch it again like it was the first time. So, I have another one that I'll throw that in there that I've probably seen everyone. Someone else said one of them here. Fausto said 24. I've seen every episode of 24 that was Kiefer Sutherland, not whenever they did one without him. But mine would be, I lost it. What was it? Oh, Everybody Loves Raymond. It would be very rare for me to find a show of that I haven't seen. So, all right. Well, that was fun. Had some good ones in there. There's a Matlock in there. Yeah, someone said ER. Oh, I know some people are really into ER. Very good job listing that along in the live chat. Those were a lot of fun. Oh, Andy Griffith Show. There's a good one. Okay, I do have to bring this up because this would be much respect. Steel Dog 88 says the Three Stooges owns every episode.
That's awesome.
That would be.
Because
we referenced we had a VHS tape. I know we got it because the 5 minutes is up. We had got us a different topic. We had a VHS tape of the Three Stooges. Had 3 episodes on it. I could recite all 3 of those episodes to you.
Yeah.
Okay. And every time somebody wipes out, what do we say they did, Rich?
They went up to the basement. Yep.
From an episode of Three Stooges. All right. Now, Rich, let's open it up. We are ready I'm just putting a question mark out there across everything. If anyone has some good questions, we can take questions for about 8 minutes or so. So if you have a good question, I mean, I guess it could be a TV show question, but we're mainly looking for Steelers questions at this time. It's funny. Gary said the Honeymooners. That doesn't count, Gary. It was only 2 seasons.
That's right.
Yeah, Star Trek. There's some good ones. Okay. Afton says, any rumors on QB coach candidates? Honestly, Mike Sullivan. I haven't heard anything about Mike Sullivan being let go. They let go the assistant's quarterback coach, and I hear that the Steelers are interviewing passing game coordinators, but not necessarily that they would call them the quarterback coach. It could be, and they could do a replacement, but I haven't heard anything specifically as quarterback.
Same.
Yeah. So, Afton, you might even have more insight to that than we could. And if you fill us in on the live chat, I will bring those up. So, here's another one. Let's go. Man, they're going to make me talk about all 3 things on my wish list, aren't they? Barry Richards wants to know, would you hire Vrabel as assistant coach and advisor? That was my coaching wish list. The Steelers did not hire anybody as assistant head coach after John Mitchell retired last year. They did not hire anybody to replace Brian Flores as the special defensive assistant that he was there. I say Mike Vrabel sounds like a great player, a great person, a great coach to have both of those roles with one person.
Yep.
Bring him in as the assistant head coach. Let him run the front part of the defense to kind of go along. Because, it was kind of Austin and Butler when Butler was the defensive coordinator. Then it was Austin. You had Austin and Flores. Now, why not Austin and Vrabel? And let him have that assistant head coach title, even if it's just for a year and he goes away. Do everything you can with it for that year. The Steelers did the same thing with Flores. I just don't know if they'll open up the checkbook to do it. That was my wish as my other thing. Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, put it this way. Do I necessarily see that it's going to happen? Not sure, because like you said, not sure they're going to open up and pay that kind of money out to Mike Vrabel to do that. Would I be surprised if it happens? No, I would not be surprised if it happens. Would I be happy if it happens? I'd probably put it along the same lines where I did with Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. Put it on a scale of 4, put it on a 3, could be a 4, but I'd have to see how it works.
Yes. Yep. So there you go. Yeah, it's funny because Afton says one of the Twixter guys said that they were interviewing QB coaches. I want to know which one said that because I saw that they were interviewing passing game coordinators. And it could even be that someone just got mixed up. I don't know. They are definitely looking at something more on the offense.
Or
it's that.
they,
What's important? Who cares what the title is?
could have been quick to get things get mixed up, because it could have been they were interviewing a quarterback coach for the passing game coordinator.
That could also be it
Very
too.
much
It could have
so.
been, yeah.
So, yeah.
So, but those are things that you're probably not going to see announced. You're probably just going to hear about it when they hire someone.
Yep.
Here, didn't want to skip over this from Steelers Pittsburgh. Retain Mitch?
No.
Here's the deal with Mitch, though. He's got 2 years left on his contract. 2.
I know.
So you don't have a very big cap savings unless you designate him as a post-June 1st cut. But in order to designate him as a post-June 1st cut, you have to retain his entire salary cap hit until June 2nd, and then you get the break of all of his, base salary and everything. So,
yeah, don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think they should. I think they should move on. The only question is how they going to work that. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, John S., he actually said the name that we didn't specifically say, but we all knew what we were talking about. Says, saw an article about Heinz Ward becoming wide receiver coach. Didn't click on it because I thought it may be clickbait. Anything on that? If it's the same article that I saw on Twixter, it was an opinion that it would be a good idea. And I think a lot of Steelers Nation thinks it would be a good idea. And that is what I would call a very good clickbait article, not because it's a bad thing, but because it will definitely have Steelers Nation wanting to click on it. But until you actually hear something that he's talking about it, or the Steelers are pretty good with some of these position coaches keeping it under wraps until it's time to go. We'll just have to see. Sherry Richardson wants to know, would you trade Deontay Johnson? He doesn't fit Smith's system. I don't agree that he doesn't fit Smith's system.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I was gonna say that's my issue there. Yeah. Saying he doesn't fit Smith's system, I'm not so certain that's a 100% true statement.
Yeah, KT Smith didn't get on board with that, so, and I trust him about more than anybody when it comes to those kind of things. It's just me. So I'm not saying he's a perfect fit for it, but I'm not saying that it's a bad fit. It's just, and the thing is, Deontay Johnson can get open. That's never a bad thing in any system.
No.
Yeah. I'm going to be interested to see about George Pickens, though. That I think that'll be good. Thomas Riley says, do you see the NFL adding one additional game to the season? I do further down the road, but they are not permitted to do it under this current collective bargaining agreement that was agreed upon by both sides. And I'm pretty sure that runs through 2030 unless they sign one sooner. So they have one going further into the future. So it'll be a while.
Yep.
Gavin Anthony, we can get a couple more here quick if we can. Top draft needs for the Steelers. He said what his are: center, corner, tackle, quarterback, linebacker, safety depth to a lesser extent. To me, draft needs.
Answer that question.
No, you can list them, but you need to do it in pencil because free agency is going to affect it more than anything else. This should be more about needs. Okay, if you really want to do something with that pencil, take out the word draft. Talk about needs.
Yes.
And I think a lot of them will be addressed in free agency. Certain ones I like more in the draft because they're just too expensive. Like, if you really want a big-time quarterback, you're better off getting one through the draft because they're just so darn expensive to sign. The Steelers are in no position, or that should not be their priority this year, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going center and tackle early in the draft, just because it might be the things that make the most sense to go draft rather than free agency. But we'll see. Reginald Rivers says, will Miles Boykin make the roster next season?
I like this question. Reginald, this is a good question.
That is.
This I think it's a really good question.
Yeah.
Right. Not seeing anything that the Steelers have done in free agency or the draft right now, I would say yes.
My big thing is you got to remember one thing.
What's that?
He's a free agent.
I know.
Yeah. But he was a veteran salary benefit contract last year. I could see him coming back with the same thing. I like him as your emergency wide receiver and a great special teams gunner.
Yep.
I think that's. I mean, he's DHB. That's who he is.
Yes. That's exactly
he's DHB, and there's nothing wrong with being that kind of player and having a nice career in the NFL with that. So I'm all for that because there were some decisions the Steelers had to make. I mean, down the stretch last year, like Johnson, was it Tyron? Is that the right name? That technically was an outside linebacker. I thought it was inside linebacker for the longest time. Brought him up from the practice squad 3 times and then signed with the 53-man roster. You know why? They didn't have enough other guys to play special teams. I did it in my exit interviews article at Steel Curd Network today. It was about Mark Robinson and Blake Martinez. Blake Martinez played 1 game for the Steelers, started, played well, great PFF grade. Didn't play him the rest of the year. He got a helmet 1 more game, but only because of injuries. But most of the time they couldn't have him active. Why was Marcus Golden inactive 1 week? They didn't have enough players otherwise that played special teams. That's why. Yep. So you've got to have special teams guys. We're going to do 1 more out there. Well, we might do more than 1 because Steel Dog Idiot says, do you think anyone would trade for Mitch because of the salary? That's a 1-word answer. No, I don't.
And I think there might have only been one other one-ish after that. Hold on.
Yeah. Last question.
Yep, that was it.
Kathy says, with another game added, could they have 2 buys? I love the idea of 2 buys. Make the offseason even shorter. Bump the Super Bowl back 1 more week so it's played before President's Day. Did I say that right? Did I say President's Day? Because in my house, we have a tradition. It's called President's Day. I have to give my kids presents.
See, I always go with the infamous
Residence Day.
Dad's former coworker who called it Residence Day because the weather here in the very western end of Maryland that is usually so terrible you spend the day in your residence.
That's right. So, but to me, add the second bye, push that back. Because Brian and KT were talking about it on Here We Go this week about the day after the Super Bowl should be a holiday. Should they play the Super Bowl on a Saturday? Doesn't make more sense. Things like that. If you push it towards President's Day weekend, then you pretty much get a lot of that taken care of. So, and I like the 2-bye idea. I talked about it before I was even with BTSC, now SCN, and that was when I expanded to 17 games. I added a second bye where every team, even if it was the second week of the season, every team, their second bye was before they played their Thursday night game. No more short weeks.
Yep.
You don't get the full bye, but you have a full bye otherwise. But now they even have teams playing 2 or 3 Thursday night games, and not everyone gets one. Go back to giving one to everybody, and then everyone gets a bye, one of their 2 buys the week before they play.
Can I make a statement real quick?
Yes.
I still hate Thursday night games.
Yeah. Honestly, I just love football. So the more football I have at least the opportunity to watch, the more I will. All right. We're really getting to the end of the show. So we're going to do our final question. We have to do it just because there is 1 more game to be played in the NFL. If people abstain from answering this question, I understand. Okay with it. But I'm going to ask you, Rich, you got to score, even though you're not going to watch it for the Super Bowl on Sunday.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. My score. San Francisco Giants 5.
Giants.
Kansas City Royals 3.
You want to give us a real one now or not?
No, that's the actual score, 5-3.
Okay. Okay. I'm actually going to throw mine out there. I'm going, like I said,
which what I really mean by that, it's going to be a low-scoring Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm going with Kansas City, and I'm going 24-17. Actually, no.
See, I think that's too many points.
23-17.
I still
And
think
that's
that's
still
too many
way
points.
under. That's still way on the under. For
I
that.
know that's crazy. I would not be surprised to see something like a 13-10 game in this.
Yeah.
I really,
and you know what?
Jeff wouldn't.
Hartman will call it boring, and I'm going to say not necessarily. The NFL wants it to be a high scoring game because people want to see points. You know what? I want to see good football. And if good football is a low scoring game, I'm fine with that. So Afton beat Thomas to it. She's got 31-31. But then here we go. Here they're all coming. Kathy Ford's got KC 24, San Fran 21. Gavin Anthony has 31-28 Niners. Steel Dog Idiot has 24-20 KC. Gary says Patrick Mahomes 20-17. Thomas Riley, he says 35-23 KC. Steelers Pittsburgh says 17-13 Mahomes. That's probably what I should have gone with. I wanted a lower scoring one too.
Yeah, I don't see many more points than what's listed there. I just really don't. Now, I could end up being totally wrong, but I could see this being a real, because these are two teams with
Kansas City doesn't give up points. Yeah, Kansas City doesn't give up points. So, and they're not going to panic, and neither is, and I don't think San Fran will be there. Mr. Woodside 24-23 San Fran. Reginald River says 21-17 KC. Jeremiah Yoder says 28-17 Chiefs. Cherry Richards says 49ers 23-17.
You're really struggling reading some of those words.
Did I miss some of them? Oh, that says chefs. Sorry, Jeremiah.
That's like the third or fourth that's the third or fourth person that's put.
They call them the chefs. Sorry. Well, I'm so used to people having misspellings that I try to say it right. But that's actually a pretty good joke from the commercial that they revamped. 24-20 San Francisco from Ruben Stone. No One You Know says 21-16 Niners. Marky D. Australia. Kelsey 1-0 on wedding proposals.
Oh, geez.
Talk about the NFL getting ratings galore. I mean, how much you would have bet if that happens? Roger Goodell bought the friggin' ring.
Yeah, exactly.
Marky D, that's a good one. I don't have any more.
The farm.
Yeah. Here we go. Jamie Carlo says 23-21 Niners. So I'm going to watch. I'm going to take in because the offseason has been way into effect for the Steelers. But until everybody's in the offseason, does it really sink in that football's done? I'll hit another depression this time next week.
Look. I'm sitting here saying I'm not going to watch the game. That's not necessarily true. Okay. For me, it's going to depend a lot on what goes on with my week between now and then, the mood I'm in, everything else.
Yep.
I may watch some and then just be like, I'm not in the mood for this. Or I may not be watching, keep an eye on the score and say, hey, this doesn't look bad. Let me go back over and watch.
Yep.
You know, I'm just not going unlike you, I'm just not going to be able to say, I'm going to sit down and watch the Super Bowl beginning to end.
Yeah. I don't know that I'll get to watch the Super Bowls beginning to end because our parents will be here at my house. My kids will be asking for stuff. Luckily,
have fun with that.
My son doesn't have school the next morning, so I'm like, yes. So I'll be distracted, but honestly, I'll try to watch everything that I can. So, all right, Rich, what do you have to say to close us up? Wait, I should say, remember, make sure you're watching all our podcasts at Steel Curtain Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. Also, make sure you're checking out the editorial stuff at steelcurtainnetwork.com. People that are listening in your live chat, seriously, check out the website. We've got some great content. It is not your typical website. It is not just trying to, and the Jeff Hartman did a great job with his letter from the editor on Sunday.
Yep, it was phenomenal.
And he talked about, you know, we're not a year into it, but we're our first season into it. Things that we learned, things that we didn't realize, everything else. The comments in it were great. And the biggest thing that people say, it is not your typical place with your comment section. You're not talking about people being rude, people getting into arguments, people calling names. It is good, great, intelligent, high-quality Steelers discussion. Doesn't mean that there's always a lot of discussion because we're just getting started. But seriously, if you haven't checked it out, please do. We know some of the stuff about it's a little bit, people might not like it. You could call it clunky or not. We're trying to work really hard this off season now to get some of this stuff fixed for the website going forward. I just had to make sure I said that, even if it meant we ran over a little bit. Yeah. Now I will turn it back to Rich if you want to close this up here.
Football season comes to an end this weekend. And unfortunately, it's not the Steelers closing it out. It wasn't to be. Was it a bad year for the Steelers? Well, there are some out there that would argue that any year that doesn't end with a Super Bowl win is a bad year. I tend to not look at things that way. Was it a successful season? I don't know. Everybody's going to have their own opinion on that.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's different ways you can look at it. I look at the Steelers season and say, you know what? In some ways, compared to where some of the professional prognosticators had them, the Steelers overachieved. In which case, then I look at that as a good. But the Steelers also really laid some stinkers out there along the way. So, although the Steelers haven't played in several weeks, with football ending this week, as you said, then we're truly into the off season. Every team is in the same place after Sunday. Right?
Yes.
Until then, it's been some teams there, some not. But after Sunday, they're all in the same place. So, to me, then, that truly will get my mind into off-season football and the things that are going to happen going throughout. So that maybe here in a few weeks, I'll be more likely to want to talk about what the Steelers quarterback situation is right now.
Yep.
Right now, like I said, I'm just feeling and I just needing a break from that, and I'm just not ready to talk about it. But we'll get there. And we all will. And will we all like the moves that the Steelers make in this offseason? No. And actually, I can tell you this. You're also not going to find a Steeler fan or potentially even anybody in the organization that loves every move the Steelers make this offseason. Okay? So there are going to be ones that we as fans, I'll sit here and say, Dave, you and I, we may not see every single move eye to eye. That's okay. All right? Because there, like I said, there'll be people within the organization that don't love every single move that the Steelers make. But the Steelers, you have to do some things. And sometimes you just can't get it all to line up and fall in place exactly the way you want to. The question is for me, as we're into the offseason, will be, are the Steelers doing what what we as fans feel are trying to make improvements in the team? If there's improvements, I'm good. To an extent. Of course, there's things we'd like to see improve more, or this, or why didn't they do that? Look, we'll have plenty of time to talk about, we'll have plenty of time to argue those points, and then we'll eventually get to see them in all their good, bad, and ugly take place out on the field. All right? And we'll be okay. We will all be okay. But the biggest thing I want to see is our Steelers continuing to do the things, and as the topic of the show tonight, doing things that we can see is trying to get them back to February football. Can't wait.
Can't wait.